area I'm talking about
National.
research that we still haven't.
You're talking national.
Yes.
I think that would be good, because I had a young lady for about 4 or 5 years who was a columnist in the paper, and she loved reading, so she did about 5 or 6 books in each issue that she had read and gave a summary of them. So we had people sending her books and everything for her to read, for her to talk about in the paper. So I think that would be a great idea, because our children really need to grow up reading books. You know, when we grew up, our mothers and fathers say, we want you to get an education. That was what everybody stressed. And reading books was really a part of that. So I think that's a great idea if we, you know, could connect with people from, and I know David has connection probably with other people across the country to do that. So I think that would be a great idea.
I guess our slogan, the foundation of what we do is Teams Win. It's taken from ancient Kemet along the Nile. Most people call it Egypt. But when you saw the leaders in those societies, it always was a man and a woman sit right beside each other. And very clearly, the process of teamwork allowed that civilization to build on the scale that it built for over 4,000 years without any major interruption until the invasions occurred. So we wouldn't have this. You don't know anybody who's written 48-page book. And it's technical and it's small print. There's a reason for that. You have to work as teams. Individuals can't do that level of work. You know, we did 2 in 2 years. We did 2 1,000-page books in 2 years. And it's not big print. Small print. And it has 1,300 footnotes in the text. So we're saying that we need teams to do everything. Our problem has been we're trying to do things individually, trying to get our name in print, or our name up in the in lights instead of working as teams. I mean, everybody has skills and talents, and we just have to make a decision on which ones we're going to team up with and use. So no, I would argue, I don't see how we could get anything done without doing it. I saw something David produced, a couple of months ago about there being only, I think, 54 bookstores, black bookstores, in the country, down from 370 just 15 years ago. There's no way for us to survive in anything that we do in this period without teaming up. That's my argument. And, just putting the ego stuff aside and getting to work. And we just hadn't done that.
We at Source Booksellers are working with SOY Bookstore out in Los Angeles. And they're primarily the ones that are keeping us on a lot of the new titles in relation to African and African American culture. So that is our partner in terms of getting information to our Detroit audience.
Yeah, because how do you purchase a book?
Louder, please.
How, I don't know anything. I need your guide, how to open a bookstore, how to run, because I just know about buying books and what I like to read. But I know that there has to be, like when Rick had his bookstore, Black Star Bookstore in Illinois, some of the books he got, like from Henry Clark and all those guys, the scholars, Asa Hilliard. Are there sources? Are there publishers who still have the books? Some of the books that my organization, Sala, from Carter G. Woodson, are out of print. We're trying to, relive them and do that. And we're having some issues nationally at a national conference in Richmond where we have a new board, and they're trying to eliminate us publishing our own journal. They want a college to do it. So there's going to be a big fight next month in Richmond because we don't want Carter G. Woodson to establish the organization for scholars and historians. Everyone's to be a participant, but he established a SALA for the laymen, for the regular people. And these historians and academicians have taken this over. And now they're trying to eliminate the part of our publishing, and we don't want that. But where do you get your books from? For Asa Hilliard and for Henry Clark? Where are those books
Well,
from?
a good source is Black Classics Press out of Baltimore. Tanisa Coates the brother who wrote the article on reparations, that's his father that runs Black Classic Press.
So he would
And-
be a part of the
yeah.
clearinghouse if there was one.
Yeah, you really should contact Black Classic Press because they have a lot of books. You know, publishing books that are out of print, you know, there's a whole thing on that in terms of copyrights, that kind of thing. But that would be a good source. But I think this is a good time, and David always is on the cutting edge of new things. This is a good time, and I'm holding whoever else want to help me, and I talked to Malik Yakini last night, and he had me up all night. We're gonna have a national Black conference in Detroit in September of 2017, and it's gonna be major. And I can tell you right now, we ain't just half-stepping. And all of the publishers, all of the clearing houses and whatever else we have, this would be a good time for us to come together and make that a reality and move on from there. So that's what we plan.
Hi, my name is Desiree Colbert. I will be graduating in December with my master's in business. My sister is graduating with her Ph.D. in engineering. And we're beginning the research to consider starting a business, not just a small bookstore, but having other functions as well. I have a couple questions. In our research, we found that by using innovation to challenge the status quo of literacy, we can completely and directly impact the Black community. What is your future, your vision for the future in Black literacy, even in Detroit or nationally? And what would you like to see in the future?
Well, let me add a couple comments here. We have in our group a plan, a major plan, and this is part of it, okay? In terms of developing Black literacy bookstores, publishers. One of them is what we call the book selfie. We have taken pictures to place on our website. We have Kathy's, we have Ed's, we have Tdka's, and we have Jean's, couple. We take a picture of you with your book, okay, whatever book you're reading, and put it on our website. So we want your picture, if you haven't already done it. Our goal for our group, the Saturday Regulars, is 100 selfies, book selfies. We want you from your group, Sala, 100. I asked Tdka about his group, 100 book selfies. We want you to make an identity with a book that we will put on our site. Then the other one is a major one, and this is for Kwanzaa, and this is our follow-up to this. We want you to make a list of 10 people you're going to gift on the holidays. 10 people. And give each one of them a book costing $25 at least, so that you will make an investment, a gift investment of $250. So you've got from now September to December. Now, I know we've already heard you can't afford it. Some folk can't. Take one or two or three. If it's four, you're gonna give at least 4 people a $25 book. $25 book, that'll be $100. But our goal is for you to make a list of 10 people that you think are worthy of giving a gift. And that gift should be a book or a magazine, a Black magazine. That's how you make a marketing commitment. And I know all of you know 10 people you're going to give a gift to. And this works. This works. And the reason why I know it works is because we've done it. When my daughter was little, every Christmas I would give her a book. Everybody else would give her clothes or whatever. Never had to worry about her excelling in school because she grew up knowing that a significant other gave her a book. All right, so I'm asking you to do the same thing. All right, I know you have 10 people, you have 10 people, you have 10, and you have 10. You give them each a book worth at least $25 from hopefully a Black bookstore or a Black magazine. That will make a difference. That's our plan. But it depends, as Tdka says, team. You're part of the team. And I picked up his motto, And if you get emails from me.
I thought it was yours.
No, it's not. That's one of the reasons why I invited him here, so that you see the person. Look, it's like Ed said. If it's good, and it should be out there, I put it out there. It's good. Now, all I'm adding to it is, teams win, and leagues do even better. Teams of teams do even better. That's why I'm asking Sala, University of Cambridge Press. 10 books, 10 people at $25 each. Your turn.
I was listening to what the young lady said, and I can't hardly get my mind out of Detroit, and where there's a lot of land still left. There's places where things could be built, and it might not cost that much to build them if you rush. And when you think of books now, you have to think of, there's a lady that opened a tea house. You have to think of what you can incorporate with the books. Because I bought books from your son's store, because there's art and then there's books. And so I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna buy something, and he has good books, so I buy books there. The other thing is that when you're doing something and everybody at the top, the hair is gray like mine, but you just can't see. But is that we have to start incorporating young people. My last year of teaching, I was working with young people that couldn't write well. And so I started them with their writing to writing children's books for the young people in the school. There needs to be somebody that's with the literacy program that's actually having them work on books and in high school. And so I had them working on books at King High School. And then after they did their children's books, and we did them online. And I mean, they made them on the computer, and then they were able to be printed out. And then the second thing, after they did that, they did a series or I think it was a fiction. And so they have to start, you have to start when they're young and start getting them the ones that are interested in writing and connect them to that building that's on that land that you purchased with your group. Because teamwork does make the dream work. But it's got to be almost community-wide.
All right, well, okay, Kim.
I'm not gonna say anymore, but I wanted to piggyback on what you had said about the difference in the Kwanzaa. At our national programs here at the Wright, we partnered with 4 or 5 bookstores and asked them.
Black bookstores?
Yeah, here, we did it years ago. We put a little slip of paper for a solace program, and that you would get 10% if you took it to one of the black bookstores off purchasing. So we all could do that. If you're having a family reunion or whatever, you can contact the bookstores and ask them if they give a special discount. You give away your little coupon, and that helps as well.
Randy?
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, or what I've seen, the reason why a lot of these black bookstores are closed, particularly in Detroit, that we already know about the literacy requirement. But the thing that I look at the most is the fact that there's no appreciation of the history, of knowing the history to begin with. Because if you have people that's teaching that don't know the history, that don't appreciate the understanding of the history, then the bookstores won't thrive. Because where would you go and buy the books if the people don't even understand or appreciate the history to begin with? So you have to have people that understand the history, know its importance, and can pass it on. Because there's no other way where you could get the books at if you're not in the black bookstore. But my major thing is that getting folks that understand and appreciate the history to begin with, because that's the only way that the bookstore is going to stay open in the city. Because you have to constantly diversify, which I'll have no problem with. But if you have people that don't understand the history, don't think it's important, then the bookstores won't stay open.
And it's been mandated in one state now, I forget, where African American history has to be taught, and we need to get it.
Now,
we
where
need
is
to-
that?
I have to look and see which
Yeah,
state
it's not,
it
it's
is.
not in Alabama, I can tell you.
Well, we need to try and get it done.
Not in Michigan either.
We need to get it done, we need to try and get the legislation done here, and it would be tough in the conditions, but we need that.
Well, you know, oh God, I get so upset about this, but we just need to do it. I mean, do it, make it happen. I mean, I was in that fight when they took over the Detroit Public Schools, that crooked John England took over Detroit Public School, and them Negroes up there in Lansing helped him out. And I was out there by myself fighting to keep our schools, and so many sellouts, it's unbelievable. But it's difficult, but you're right. If you teach black children their history, and I teach at my church in Alabama, I'm in the AME church, the oldest black church it is. And I teach black history in my church. They had no one to do that. But a lot of us just have to step up to the plate and say, let me, whatever organization you're in, I want to teach black history. You know, brother talked about Kemet, which is ancient. You know, we raised the pyramids above the Nile. We gave the world the sciences of chemistry, physics, mathematics, astronomy, and astrology. We laid the basis for Eastern and Western civilization. Now, our people need to know that. But they won't know it unless you go there and teach it to them. And I taught it for 3 years. After I got fired, I taught it at William Robinson Elementary School on the east side. And I tell you, when I went in there, Miss Buchanan, the principal, told me, she said, we want you to go and teach our black kids. I had 800 kids. We did some amazing things. And then, you know, they destroyed the system.
Young ladies asked about the plans for the future. My company, UIN, we're getting ready to introduce a set-top box. Certainly we're going to have our programming out, but we're working with an educator that's going to have we're going to have an educational channel where people can go and really get all the information that they need. As a matter of fact, one of the things that they incorporated into the box is this is black guy, so we're going to have all the classics like Shakespeare. But I belong to ASCAP, and when we get this box, we're going to make sure we look to work with your organization to make our relevant information available in the set-top box. But things are getting ready to change without a doubt.
In terms of education, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, there's an elementary school called Washington Writers Academy. These kids in their library, and we can't minimize the importance of a library. There is a writing center, a publishing center, where kindergartners through 8th grade are writing books and publishing them. So they have completely reimagined this whole literacy piece, and it's been an intrinsic part of their educational program for the past 10 years. In terms of their test scores, particularly with writing, they're slamming. But we're talking about a whole nother system. We're talking about Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. And their teachers seamlessly include African American history, from gym to science to reading to art, seamlessly is included at the school. That's all I have to say about that.
I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, I had 2 points. I didn't know your name.
Desiree.
Desiree, yeah. Number one was our process has been to document our process. So before we could write books, we had to write down our research process. So we wrote a book called C-Book, which is a research manual to show folk how to go about doing research. And then we wrote another book to show people how to set up study teams. You can't do research by yourself unless the team knows what they're doing. And so if you give someone an assignment or they give themselves an assignment, they need to know how to do it. And so we had to write a book called Study Teams. And then from the study teams, how do we get out, as Elder Vaughn said, we started out selling the books out of the trunk of our car, walking with them. You have to get started somewhere, and you have to begin to target people, younger people, who need the information. Our children are battling. They want, it's not a religious battle, they're battling for morality, ethics, right and wrong, good and bad, justice and injustice. standing out in front of white folk who trying to kill us with guns and all. That's justice. They're not praying over that. And so they want guidelines, guiding principles from our best people. Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, people like that. In the final analysis, we thought that our books should be practical books. Even the question around literacy is tied to something practical. You know, how are we going to teach people to read? How are we going to teach them our history? What are the methods of teaching that history? So we went and wrote a whole book, African Time, summing up this is volume 1, universe to 1896. Because there's so many holes in the presentation of our history. Some people try to start off during slavery. Some people might even start off in West Africa. Some people may start off in the Nile Valley. But that's not when human beings started. They started in Ethiopia, in that region. Tanzania, Uganda, down in that region. And so we have to start there. But we can't just start with human beings. We know that we are not the only beings on the planet. What produced us? So we had to go back and trace these things objectively using the best science information. We call ourselves in the tradition of Diop and Obinga, Dr. Diop and Obinga, following in those footsteps. So I say this to say that we'll have to get study teams together. This is what we're pushing. And the young people are taking it up, especially college and late high school, setting up study teams.
Yes.
There are literacy groups all around the city of Detroit who don't seem to know each other exist. Can you hear you? There's literacy groups all around the city of Detroit that don't seem to know each other exist. Also, Ms. Smith, the lady, what's her name, Kathy, who used to do the book reviews?
Oh, Crystal, I just mentioned.
Crystal,
her.
yeah.
Crystal Kathy.
Okay, now is she available for your pick for syndication?
Well, she's moved, and I was really hurt. She's in Chicago, and I've been trying to get her to come back, but she did excellent reviews on books. She reviewed at least 6 or 7 each issue.
Yeah, no,
So
I used to email her. So is that job slot still open?
You just reading my mind. I was going to ask that question if anybody here who loves books and could, read books and do summaries in the paper. I need a person for books, and I would like to get that list of all the bookstores here in town, because a lot of them, we don't know everything. We're all in our own little world, so we don't know everything. And I'd like to have that in the paper so people can know where to get books, especially children's books. Children need to know. I mean, I'm looking at these books here, and I get a headache looking at how many pages in there, and I haven't even opened the book. So, I know.
Okay.
I'm just saying. But if children, that history that you have where the beginning, do you have it in form for like children for children to read? Because they're not going to read that.
Well, we started off knowing we had to go to the parents first. Our major struggle has been with young people and parents. Very clearly, the parents are the first people to teach history to their own children. We can't have people at school or these other places giving information that has not been vetted. They're coming home with all these lies. Kemet or Egypt is white and was white. And so you're trying to work out, how did they get this? Well, someone else is teaching that to them. If you had the information, you would be able to show them the color pictures. We have over 30,000 color pictures. So we know how our people looked. And so I say all that to say that the best thing that we can do is begin the process of teaching our children. And that means we got to get the adults in order too. But I got your point. We'll get to it. We're going to get there.
Sylvia Hubbard used to give literary conferences.
Can we bring it up?
Sylvia Hubbard used to give literacy conferences annually. I haven't heard about hardly any more around Detroit. Literacy conferences, where literacy is promoted and authors selling their books, things along that line. Any plans for that?
We do that at Source Booksellers. We do it quarterly. We have an authors roundtable. We invite authors in, invite the public in.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
I have a question in regards to writing the history, true history. how do you get around, every time I go to try to publish some documentation, if you don't get a grant, you know, nobody wants to write it. But if you get a grant, then it's edited, the truth is edited out in many cases. How do we deal with that?
Well, you know, that's us. We have to answer that one. 25 years of keeping journals, working these odd jobs. People might call it their career. We didn't have a career. I mean, when you, just as Elder Vaughn said, you just got to do it. You know, you can't wait on someone to hand you any money. We didn't get no money from anyone. We did this on our own because we care about what our children were getting. And we care about what adults are teaching our children. In most cases, just ignorant of what has taken place. And so our foundation is evidence first. If there's no evidence, what are you writing it in a book for? I mean, if it's just a story that you made up, I mean, what use is it to these children? And so we've got to get to the point that we have an argument, a scientific foundation to our work. But I'll end that and say that, you know, we fight very hard to do our own work, independent research. And even if we have to rob Peter to pay Paul, meaning and substance, go to these little odd jobs that people call careers, and get the resources necessary to do our work, that's what we did. And so we can't wait on grants because, as you said, you didn't say it, but I'm going to say it, peer review means white review. Okay? That means in substance, if they don't say it's okay, it ain't gonna get printed. You got me? And if it gets printed, they're gonna take every single thing out of it that changes the discussion. Every single thing. And so that's why we got a situation in these schools where the books, no matter what's in there, if the white folk don't agree with it, it ain't gonna be taught.
That's right.
And so we have to teach in our own homes and to our own too. That's what we are, literally, we will be an underground publisher and printer. That's what we're doing. Because we know they're not gonna even allow you to say the things, even if you have the evidence, they're not gonna even allow it.
And we gotta go to the basic fundamentals of printing, and that is printing our own stuff. Now let me tell you a story of what happened to me. Back in the day, I had a little travel group. I took them to Chicago, and I took them to Johnson Publishing Company, the publishers of Ebony, and at that time, Black World, and it was called Negro Digest earlier. Well, you know what happened to them. They threatened Mr. Johnson with destroying Ebony magazine if he didn't get rid of Black World, which was old Negro Digest. Because Hart Fuller, who was the editor of Black World, was writing a lot of good stuff. You know, he printed a lot of my articles in that publication. And so we picketed Johnson Publishing Company. Mr. Johnson came out and he told us, he said, if I don't get rid of them and get rid of Black World, they are going to shut me down at Ebony. And he said, I had to do it. And we said, who gonna shut you down? Well, he said, the white folks, gonna shut him down. When I took those kids over to Chicago, we went to Johnson Publishing Company. The children asked Mr. Johnson, do you publish your magazines and books here? And he said, yes, in Chicago. They said, well, where is your publishing company? And he said, we don't have one. We use Lakeside Press. Okay, they publish Time Magazine also, Newsweek and everybody else. And so then we went over to Mr. Muhammad was still living at the time, Elijah Muhammad. We went over to his place in Chicago, and we went, and the children saw this now. We went and we saw where they published Muhammad Speaks. We went in the room, the big press is running, and all these black folks in that publishing. What happened? Ebony is out of business. Johnson Publishing Company may as well be out of business. But Muhammad Speaks and the Farrakhan, they're still publishing in those same things. We got to move to publishing our own publications, because if you don't, and you put something in there that white folks don't like, I guarantee you they're gonna cut you loose. I don't care what you got, how much money you got to pay them. So that's one of the things that we got to do. If we don't do it, we ain't going nowhere.
Which is important. Instead of projecting, we got to do it. We have to say, I'm going to do it. okay, you have to speak not in generalities, who's gonna do it, and so you gotta say what you're stepping up to the plate to do. And then, let me also make a point. The black perspective is larger than history. The black interest is